Hi there, everybody. It's Ida Norris and my assistant, Dana Roberts. And we're getting back to all of you. You have been reaching out to us with questions. So this is our Q&A, and these are the most commonly asked questions. Actually, these have been asked more than once. So Dana's got them all compiled, and she's going to go ahead and read them off. We're going to see what we can do about answering your questions today. Thanks for joining us.
All right. So first question I have, Ida, is do you have to clip or shave whiskers? And because we know some organizations ban this. So in Western dressage, is this something we should or shouldn't be doing?
Well, there's a big humane movement across all divisions right now to stop clipping the whiskers. And the thing about Western dressage is right now, we don't have a rule one way or the other. What you'll see is most of us, because a lot of us do other work, we do working ec, we do dressage, we do all kinds of stuff, we do tricks. The horses have whiskers because they're doing other work and we don't take them off. And there is this really big humane movement for not removing them. However, if you belong to a division that maybe you're showing halter or something, and this is kind of, you are doing it, it's not forbidden. So either way is okay for now, but if you can consider leaving them natural, we kind of like as judges, we kind of like seeing that. It's okay. But no big rule thing on that right now.
Okay. Awesome. That's good to know. Next question I have for you is what do you do with long manes in the show ring? And I'm wondering this too, because I have Mustangs and they all have long, natural, beautiful manes, and I will not cut them.
Oh man, I totally get that. Well, I did. I was very careful to actually look this all up too, just to be sure that I remembered right, because judges are supposed to remember everything positively and perfectly. And I'm like, oh, I think I remember this perfectly. But sometimes a rule gets changed when you're busy, and all of a sudden there's a rule change. But under WD 122.5, there is a part that says that decorations are prohibited in the mane and the tail. So we need to keep that in mind because we have a lot of horses that come in like from the quarter horse world that are banded. And that's okay. We're used
Mhm.
to looking at that. Your mane can be long and flowing. The and you've seen my mare Lilith behind me. She kind of has long mane, but I don't even know if it's as long as your horses. Your horses are really long mane. The thing I did want to say as a judge, and I know I'm wandering, is that there are some horses with phenomenal manes, like super, super long, super thick. I don't think competitors realize how much that affects my inability to judge their horse's connection and their reins. There's so much hair over the rein,
Mhm.
and I can't see the horse's neck. I can't see if it's bending its neck very well. On the side that huge, heavy, long mane is, it's a nightmare to judge. So the higher the level up you go, the more of a problem this is for the judge when they're trying to judge your connection, your frame, how your rein contact is, and your hands are all in it and
In the
whatever.
main. I've
Yeah,
I've definitely felt that before where I feel like the mane sometimes like I'm shortening my reins and I'm grabbing mane a little bit by accident.
yes. And
So would you prefer a braided? Would it be okay to braid with just neutral color bands?
yeah, well, and that's the thing is, I looked everywhere in the rule book and then I checked with a steward and it's like, it is not illegal to braid.
Okay.
It's just, people don't think it's very Western. But the thing is, when like I get to an Arab show and stuff, and people are cross showing, and they have to go from the dressage ring to the Western ring or whatever, they come in braided.
Mhm.
We're just barn blind to it. We just ignore it because they don't have time to unbraid and braid. We know that.
Mhm.
Personally, for me, and it may just be because, I'm from New England, so we had Morgans, and we have a lot of horses that we put running braids in. We put French braids in,
Mhm.
and you could do it fast, and it could come out fast. It didn't break the mane and everything. Personally, I don't mind that, and especially in Western dressage, when I see a horse with really heavy mane and they kind of try to braid it up like that, I'm like, oh, thank you for doing that because
Because
I
then
need
you
to
can see the
can
neck.
see the neck.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And especially at the higher levels, the higher up you go, the more I really need to see your whole connection and everything. So it's a really big thing. So here's the rule we really have to pay attention to. No decorations, so no weird stuff. So let's talk about you can you can tie it up with string or thread that's the same color as the mane. Don't use anything that's weird colors. No, don't use tape. Don't use ribbons. Don't use flowers. Don't use anything that's a decoration. No sparkles, no weird stuff, nothing like that. If you decide that you need to get your mane up somehow, you can band it. You can braid it. It's not illegal to braid it. You know, one thing is like we were talking about those horses that need to cross show in some other dressage, they're more likely to have dressage or huntery braids. But if you can figure out some other braid that's not so huntery,
Mhm.
oh, don't I love the horses that come in with really thick manes that they have hogged them or cut them. And what about the ones that they cut them into shapes, Like, oh, I love looking at those. Those are really cool, especially if it's a fjord and it has, the tan color and then the black and everything.
Yeah,
Saw one once that his mane went up and square over and down and up and square over and down like the top of a turret of a castle. I was like, wow. And
that's
so then
cool.
from the same breeder, in came one that they were cut like pickets. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. So all of that kind of stuff is really cool. So as long as you don't have artificial decorations in, um, you can do something. And
Mhm.
I would recommend it because I'll let really long, heavy mane. If it's in the way of your hands, it must be, really annoying. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, absolutely. Well,
even
it's good.
nights
Yeah, it's
on
good to know that
destriers
we
either
can.
cut the mane off or
Mhm.
they rolled it up because they didn't when they were fighting, they didn't want it to get in the way of their weapons. So it
Mhm.
makes sense.
Well, that's good. I'm gonna have to learn how to French braid, I guess, then.
Well, one thing that I used to use is after I got it all done, I would put the mousse to it and just stick it down, like stiffen it up after I got it done. Just FYI, good tip there.
Yes.
French
Okay, so
French
the
hair
next question,
product.
yeah, the next question I have is, do judges reward a one-handed rider over a two-handed rider when using a curb bit in Western dressage?
Oh, great question. And people wonder about that all the
Mhm.
time, don't they? A lot of discussion in the amateur Western dressage Facebook pages and stuff. The thing is about Western dressage, it's all about your riding and your performance. Like, how is the horse doing? So you can ride one-handed, you can ride two-handed. It's about the quality of your riding. Are you soft with your hands? Are you soft with the bridle? Is the horse, if it's to be straight, is it straight? If it's supposed to be bent in half pass, is it properly bent? If you're riding one-handed and it isn't bent, well, you're doing a bad job. If
Mhm.
you're riding two-handed and it isn't bent, you're doing a bad job.
Yeah.
Like, it's not about whether you're on one hand or two,
Mhm.
and you don't get extra points for doing one thing or another. The one thing that we remind people of, though, which I think this is a little sidebar, but it's sort of about bits, is that almost it's amazing, like 90% of our members, when they take a survey and we ask them if they're riding in a curb, they're riding in a shank bit, but it has a snaffle mouthpiece. It has a movable mouthpiece. And people outside of our division, or sometimes people coming into our division, they're kind of like, "You guys are riding one-handed, two-handed, on a curb bit, like kind of like that's bad."
Mhm.
And we're trying to point out to them that these bits are quite humane. They do have some flexibility, that we are asking for self carriage. A lot of times you see pictures, where we're riding, even at all kinds of levels where there's a lot of collection, and you'll see the rein is really kind of soft because we're looking for self carriage and we're looking for that harmony and we're looking for the horse to carry itself. And
Mhm.
we're not looking for it to bear down onto the bit. We don't use the on the bit terms as much as traditional dressage riding. sports do. We don't use that term so much because we're not looking for heavy contact. We're not
Mhm.
looking for strong contact. And a lot of the horses are very self-carried and in kind of soft rein contact, which is kind of our bag. That's kind of our thing.
Mhm.
So it's really good to talk about and to talk about that we're flexible, one-handed too.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like just as long as you're doing the movement well, whether it's one or two-handed, it's more important to just be doing the movement well. So however you can get that done.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And isn't it cool that it can be in a curb, it can be in a snaffle, it can be in
Yeah.
an English snaffle, it can be
Yeah.
in a Western snaffle, it can be in a bitless bridle, it can be in a both solids, like whatever. Well, we have
Yeah.
a selection, which I think is really great because we have a
Mhm.
lot of horses come into our division that have had bitting problems somewhere else or possibly mouth injuries and things. And people people contact me all the time and say, my horse had a mouth injury, I'm riding bitless. And is that possible? And we're saying, yes. Wow,
Mhm.
cool.
Yeah, I think that's awesome that you have all those different options and what equipment you can use to ride for that. That's great.
It's great. It really
Yeah.
is a fun division for Western dressage.
Yeah. So next question, um, and I like this one. Do you have tips for eyeballing a 15-meter circle? So when practicing, they're using cones but lost without them. And I love this question because we did a 15-meter circle for the first time ever, and you were just like, and do a 15-meter circle, and you're like, what happened? And I go, my brain was like, I've never done one. I don't know where to go.
Okay, gotta learn that spatial recognition. Okay, well, actually, you guys are looking. If I can get my hand up onto my camera here, you're looking at my ring here. So my ring has poles, across it, and no fair because my poles are marked. When I get over to where the quarter line is, there's a piece of tape on that pole. Well, one thing you should be doing at home is actually put out a little road cone at your quarter line at the end of your ring. And did you know you're allowed to do that? Like even in an online show, you can have that marker there. You're allowed to have that marker. In fact, it would help the judge if you measured off your quarter lines and you put an orange road code there. It'd be great. I bet you didn't know that on regular dressage rings, so for dressage, and for almost all of the recognized WD shows, because those people, the people that set up the rings for us, are dressage people. And there's red tape on the ring mark where the quarter line is. And it's supposed to be there for dressage, and it usually is for Western dressage also, because it's generally dressage volunteers that are setting up the ring because they know how to set up the ring. And people that are new to Western dressage don't set up the ring because it's too complicated. And those red markers are generally there. And so if you haven't, as a competitor, noticed them, you want to start looking down, riding around, and you'll see a red piece of tape on the rings as you go along. And that's how the people that are like dragging and stuff, when they move the letters and they have to move them back, that's just in some rodeo arena. It's just some guy with a tractor. He doesn't know where the letter goes, but there's a red mark on the arena. So to begin with, it's okay to have the arenas marked. Many arenas are marked, and if they are marked, it's a big help to you. So then go out and mark your arena. Then, as a judge, this is a little, of course, we're not telling everybody. No, everybody. I'm telling secrets. People don't think about, if you're doing a 15-meter circle, you if you have to if you're guessing, or that sounds weird, so my colleagues are going to get after me, but if you err on the side of it being big, your score goes down more than if you err on it being tight. If you're capable of doing it a little bit tight, you will actually get a better score. And when you go out there, if you're trying to work on this, or you're even in a horse show and you go, wow, I'm not doing this. Like, for a moment, you just lose your perspective. making it smaller, if you do it well, will get you a bigger score because a bigger one is easier and the judges way have to mark you down.
I think that's
Whereas,
really good to know because when you're
yeah,
showing then if you can do it a little tighter, I feel like it makes you feel a little safer, like, okay, like I'm getting this done a little tighter than bigger.
yes. And the interesting part about this is, so on 15-meter circles and 10-meter circles, let's talk about 10-meter circles for a second because it's going to help you understand 15-meter circles. 10-meter circles up from the wall to the center line. So when you turn that, when you turn a 10-meter circle, you want your outside toe, your boot, to skim over that center line. So like if I take my hand here and I look at the camera, if I can do it here, but see my boot, where right past my shoulder is my boot right there, that wants to skim over the center line. If I put half of the horse over the center line, then the judge says your 10-meter circle's too big.
Hmm.
So it gets to be a little bit like tennis. You want the outside of you just barely touching the line, and you do not want to bisect the horse because if you're in a 15-meter circle and you put her chest on the center of it, most horses are, so wide. And then that means that they're going to think you're about 2 or 3 feet wide because they perceive that you put the horse bisecting the line. And it's the one time that you want the whole of the horse on the inside of the 15-meter circle to get the
Hmm.
best score.
Yeah, and that's helped me a lot knowing that. Because when I watch my videos back, I can say like, okay, that was good. You can see your foot just skim the center line. And then for my online showing, when I watch it back, like my videographer will be like, you're over center line for those circles. And I'll be like, oh, okay, I have to pay a lot more attention to just my toe going on center line.
Yes, that's for the 10 meters.
Yeah, 10
Exactly.
meter.
Yes, exactly.
Hmm.
And you're right. So if you think about that, it's a little bit harder with the 15, and I may not have really helped this woman, but how do you learn this is what you're asking me.
Hmm.
You go out there and you mark
Work it.
your ring until
Mhm.
you can do this in your sleep. And one of the things that you want to do is that you're used to it in your own ring. And when you do get to a horse show, go down and look and see if the red tape's on the ring. It may or may not be, but then okay, I do crazy stuff like I count over and I go, well, they have placed a ring marker or there's a pole right where I need to be. So then I go, okay, it's the third pole over or whatever it is. And I make
Mhm.
a marker for myself mentally and I use that marker. Like taking time to go to a horse show ring before you go up there with your horse, like leave the horse at the trailer, go
Mhm.
up and look at the ring, see if you can get a spatial reading on it. One of the things I do is stand behind A and look at the judges, like how did they view the center line so that I'm sure that I'm going to make the turn and get at the right angle to the judge, stuff like that. So these are all tricks for getting the geometry right, and this 15-meter thing is really hard. So knowing that conservative is better than large is
Yeah.
for judging.
Yeah, I think that's key. And then the marks on the arena, I had no clue about that for like a really long time until I watched one of your From the Judges box and you notated that the tape marked on the arena. That was the first time I was like, oh gosh, there are markers on the arena. Like I had no idea. I've never seen it riding in the arena because just focused on other stuff.
Right, like some random piece of red tape. What's with the random piece of red
Yes, I
tape on the
no
arena?
idea.
I
It
don't know
didn't
what
even
that is.
click.
Yeah, why would that be there?
Yeah.
No idea except that that's helping the judge see a quarter line or, whatever.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, the idea that how about if you really go out to practice as a riding instructor, I have gone out and taken a rake or a broom and drawn the quarter lines for people
Mhm.
and said, okay, here's a line. I want you to stay between those two lines. Go do me a circle between these two lines. Just put your boot up to the line. That's a great way to practice.
Yeah.
Super way, like mark it out, practice it, and you can practice, you can mark it depth and width.
Mhm.
Interesting thing is, and my colleagues are going to be really mad at me, but whatever. Depth perception for judges is the harder part of judging the circle, deep. Width, they can see. So
Okay.
I tell people, for heaven's sakes, the width has to be perfect.
Mhm.
You screw up, the depth is a different ballgame. It's harder to see that. Not that I want you to be inaccurate. I'm not saying that, but as a coach, now I'm wearing my little coach hat.
Yeah.
That's way harder for me to see as a judge. But man, width you can see. So you have to really be on the width. And if you can, you of course want it to be perfect if you can.
Yes. Okay, so the last question I have here today is, are there any requirements to be able to show a freestyle in Western dressage?
Oh, that's another great question. So much discussion about that because in dressage, they did put some minimums in that you had to ride in a recognized show and get a particular minimum score before you could go in. There's a lot of discussion about that in Western dressage, but at this time, it hasn't happened yet, which is interesting, but
Mhm.
we don't actually have that. So what your problems are is that it is like a regular Western dressage show in that you couldn't go in level one, test one, and then do a freestyle of level three. You have to be in consecutive levels of work. So that is something. You couldn't you couldn't do something like a student ride the horse in basic, and then maybe I'm the trainer and I want to ride freestyle level three. Those aren't two consecutive levels, so I'm not allowed to do anything like that. So you have
Mhm.
the consecutive level rule. And at this point, there's no USEF WDAA rule that says that you have to have a minimum score to go in a freestyle before you can go in a freestyle.
Okay.
However, there is one caveat to this. Horse shows are allowed in their programs to make rules, which are exceptions to USEF WDAA rules. And if they make that rule as a show rule, like for example, a show can require helmets if they can get WDAA to agree to it, or you know what I'm saying? Like if you want to go on our show, you have to wear a helmet. And they can do things like that if they can get organizations to agree with them. So there may be a show that has this requirement, but usually that's not USEF WDAA. And I know that there was some discussion about this for the World Show, but I haven't seen the program yet and see if there's any requirement on that. So my advice to people is at this point, the answer is no at this point. But
Mhm.
rules do change during the year, so check the rule book, but not right now. And especially for worlds, read the show program really closely because there can be a change sometimes. And this far out, I don't know about that yet. But there was some discussion about it, and it might be coming. It might be.
Mhm.
Not now, yet.
Well, that's good. That's good to know about the freestyle. I don't see too many of those being written actually right now at the shows that I attend, so I'm really interested in them.
They're a fun project. It's
Mhm.
just people realize that to be successful at them, the development of the freestyle can take 3 or 4 months to get a program together, music together. And in order to be successful in a freestyle, you really have to be already winning like the last test of the level that you're in. So, in order to win a basic freestyle, you have to be winning level basic test four.
Okay.
And so a lot of people are already ready to go on to another level. And then
Mhm.
there's all this work to develop this program. It's a lot of fun and it's really creative, but you
Mhm.
have to be really driven to want to do it because of the time commitment. Do
Mhm.
I think it's worth doing? I sure do. And people really like them.
It looks
They,
really fun. I think if
oh,
you're really creative, that it would be really fun for you.
It is, and it's another whole, skill. It's
Mm,
another whole skill in and of itself,
yeah.
so really, really fun. We're hoping more people take it up. We do, the most popular ones are, like, the ones at Worlds where you get to wear a costume, and the costume freestyle at Worlds show is just, wow, so much fun, and the costumes are just amazing.
That sounds like fun. So I guess that brings another question. So a regular freestyle and Western dressage, is it costume or is it just music?
It's just music, and you
Okay.
have to stay within your regular what you're allowed to wear in a horse show,
Okay.
under clothing and tack. You have to be legal on clothing and tack. You can't change. So, like, for example, maybe, you're playing some real patriotic music or something, and you're thinking you'd like to have red or blue polo bandages. No,
Okay.
because the polo wrap rule is that they have to be white, black, or a color very similar to the horse and
Hmm.
a discrete color, not a bright color. So, like, you could have white polo wraps, but you couldn't have red, you couldn't have blue.
Got
Uh,
it.
so you can't do decorating the horse and
Mhm.
that kind of thing. I did have people say to me, "Well, can I wear this and can I wear that?" One lady was doing a freestyle and it was Christmas music, and she wanted to have a red Santa hat, which I told her was no, because that's a costume. Um, she was gonna have red polo wraps, and I said, "No, you could have white ones." What she ended up doing was her clothing was red, white, and green, which that's okay. You can pick
Mhm.
any color clothing you want, so that was alright, and
Yeah.
she just kept the polo wraps to white. She didn't wear the Santa hat and, kinda had a red, white, and green saddle pad, and that was okay.
Mhm.
That did not constitute a costume.
Okay. So if you
So
are wearing a costume in a regular freestyle and Western dressage, is that going to get you eliminated?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
That is
So
good to know.
yes, yes. So the if an organizer is offering costume freestyle, the program will say costume
Costume.
freestyle.
Okay.
If
So
it
make
just
sure you
says
read that.
yes, if it says, and I haven't seen anybody except at Worlds offering costume freestyle, but
Okay.
maybe there's some show I don't know about, but we hope there is. But, otherwise, if it just says musical freestyle, your clothing has to fall within the legal, requirements of USEF WDAA rules. So, yeah, but we're excited about the freestyle and we're encouraging people.
Yeah. It sounds like fun. Well, this was amazing. Thank you for answering all of these questions for us today.
Thank you. We'll do it again soon. We'll gather up all the new questions. Send in questions, folks, if you have something you'd like us to answer. Don't forget, you help us a lot if you go to the YouTube channel and push the subscribe button. Remember, that is free, but it helps us keep putting out free information. We hope you'll subscribe and follow us on Facebook. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dana.
Thank
Talk to you
you.
again. See you all
Bye.
soon. Bye.